Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 14, the last video lecture of the entire course. Woohoo! There will be another video after this, but it'll not be a lecture. Okay, this chapter is all about JavaScript, and don't panic. If you're not a programmer, that's perfectly okay. We're not going to get into the weeds on how to write a JavaScript kind of an application. We're just going to touch the surface and be able to answer questions like, what is it and what's it for and how can I use it and what the options are and all those kinds of things. Okay? Okay. So, as always, let's start with the learning objectives. Page 571. Describe the common uses of JavaScript. Yep, that's a good one. Describe the purpose of the document object model and list some of the common events. Yeah, that's okay. Create a simple JavaScript using the alert method. Yep, we're going to do that. Use variables, operators, and if control structures? Nah. Create a basic form application? Nah. Describe common use of jQuery? Yeah. Use jQuery selectors? No. Configure an image gallery? No. Describe the purpose? Oh yeah, big time. Alright, so we're just going to jump across this chapter and kind of pick out the good nuggets that I think you really kind of sort of need and skip over the rest. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning because this story is kind of weird. You heard from a couple chapters ago that Java and JavaScript are not really related. In fact, if you were trying to compare languages, there's probably more differences between the two than there are similarities. Okay, so the story is kind of weird. The story goes like this. So Netscape, way back when, these guys were king. I mean, Netscape was the bleeding edge. They created items that got put into the HTML standard. I mean, they created the SSL stuff for to do secure transfers over the web, and they created JavaScript. So yeah, so they were big players, and they were working with a joint agreement with Sun Microsystems, who had the real Java language. They were working with them on a joint, kind of like a joint venture, so they could create a Java plugin for the Netscape browser, so you could run Java applets in a browser. And so while they were doing this, and they decided to have a press conference to talk about the new JavaScript thing. Well, somehow, somebody somewhere either got confused or just kind of jumped on the gun or whatever. They renamed it because it used to be called LiveScript, and then the day before, the day it was released to the world, they changed it to JavaScript, and no one knew why. And still to this day, we don't really know why it got changed to JavaScript. The people from Sun Microsystems didn't know what was going on, and the rest of the people at Netscape didn't know what was going on. So it's called JavaScript, and I will tell you that even today, it still causes confusion. I'll get people saying, I'm trying to enable JavaScript in my browser, and I'm thinking, probably not. You're probably trying to enable Java in your browser because JavaScript's kind of built in. Okay. So let's go back to the very beginning. JavaScript is what's called a client-side programming scripting language. Client-side means it runs inside your browser. Okay. Doesn't have to go to the server for anything. It's embedded inside the HTML. So I could be just typing along, typing in an HTML line, and then just kind of stop and just start flipping over to JavaScript and pick up where it left off and go to HTML. So just kind of mix and match inside the HTML tags. So you can just throw in some JavaScript stuff. And we'll do a couple of those. It has very, very wide support for browsers. In fact, I don't know of any browser that does not support JavaScript. Unlike Java, where practically no browsers support Java, almost all browsers, at least everyone I ever know of, supports JavaScript. And I guess there could be some people that want to turn it off. I can't imagine why. But, maybe they're confused about, I heard there was a Java vulnerability, so I turned off my JavaScript, right? Because they don't understand, and so they were kind of in there. So it's reasonable to assume that every browser supports JavaScript, and it's mostly reasonable to assume that everyone has it enabled. Now, that's not exactly true. And in fact, we're going to come up with some accessibility issues here later on, where we basically have to say you can't write a web page that requires JavaScript to be enabled, because maybe screen readers don't have it. I don't know. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. On page 573, you talk about the popular uses of JavaScript. That's pretty cool. And the first one is a thing called an alert message. So we're going to do that. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to put me I don't know, p tag, and say paragraph 1. And then down here, I'm going to do me another p tag. This is going to be paragraph 2. And in between the two, I'm going to throw in a JavaScript thing. I'm going to say script. Now, it used to be, you had to tell what scripting language you were using, because a lot of browsers supported multiple types of scripting. In HTML5, that's kind of sort of not an issue now. If you say script, it kind of sort of knows what you're talking about. So I'm just going to say alert, if I spell it right, and then just type something in here like hello. Okay. Now, you see I've got script that's just kind of intermingled with my HTML. In fact, if you weren't that good at HTML, you might assume that that's a normal HTML thing. Cool. All right, so I'm going to run this. And there's a couple things that are going to happen. One is, it's going to get down to the point where we have paragraph 1. Oh, come on, machine. Quit being pokey. Okay. What happens is, what it was supposed to have done, although it didn't, it was supposed to show you that execution stops and pops its little thing and says hello. And then only when you hit the button do you get the rest of the page. Mine didn't actually work that way because there's some optimization that's turned on, and we're kind of in a fake environment here. But typically what it should have shown is that it should have shown paragraph 1 and then stop, displayed that message, and only after you click the message does it continue the rest of the way. Now, that's not necessarily good for performance, because if you're writing a browser, heaven forbid you would ever create a browser from scratch. But if you ever did that, you would basically have to render the image and stop rendering it, go run this thing, and then pick up and render the end where you left off. So it's kind of nasty. But anyway, the alert. It's a very common thing. All it does is just pop up a little thing. If this was a programming class, I'd go into some detail about this being a modal form. How's that for a good term? Modal. Modal basically means that you cannot continue doing anything. I can't even click off of this thing. I must respond to this box by hitting OK. If I don't, or I guess I could hit close. But anyway, the point is I have to respond to that guy to be able to get back to my web page. Cool? All right. So pop-up windows like this are kind of useful, and you can probably imagine how they could be abused. Yeah. I mean, don't a lot of you have like a pop-up blocker on your browser to keep ads from popping up? Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of them out there. There's an awful lot of there's ad block and ad block plus and a few others that there's a gazillion of these things that you add onto your Internet Explorer browser, your Edge browser, Google, whatever it is. And it basically keeps these things from occurring. Keeps from occurring the thing that we just did. Okay. So it's often abused by advertisers. So again, you cannot assume that a pop-up window is actually going to make it. You can fire it off, but you can't be guaranteed it's actually going to occur. Okay. There's another issue there. They talk about these jump menus. I'm not going to show it on the screen here. But a jump menu is, remember the hover controls, like when we took the mouse and we hovered over a particular link and it changed colors and that kind of stuff? Well, you could have a drop-down menu. There's a pretty good demo of it in the book. You can take a peek. So, I just hover over something and the menu goes boop. Now I'll show you one that's kind of sort of similar. It helps if you spell your own thing correctly. Okay. So wait for this to come up. So this is a menu. And see how you just hover over it and it drops down? Okay, isn't that pretty cool? That's done with JavaScript. Cool, huh? All right, just wanted to show you. Okay. You remember the little combo box thing, the HTML thing that we did with the select element? Well, there's a JavaScript version of that you can do basically the same thing. Instead of, you know, a lot of people use it for like navigation. So I go to a point like this and say click on something, and instead of, in this case, setting the state of a calculator, it actually, you know, launches something and goes off into some other place. So you could do this with a menu for nav as well. Anyway, so combo box, kind of sort of the same thing as the select menu. The next one talks about mouse movement. This is very similar to this hover thing that we've been doing with CSS, okay? Except in this case, you could have different pull-down menus. You could swap images in and out. For example, when I click on this button right here, you may not see it, but this button will move down and over a tiny bit. I'm gonna hit it a couple times so you can see it. Can you see it kind of move? I mean, it's not very much, but you can see it does move a little bit. That is swapping out an image based upon a mouse action. So I'm clicking on a button and it swaps out the image. And the only difference is one image has the button squared on the image, and the other image has it scooted down a couple and over a couple. So when you swap the image out, it makes it look like the button is being pushed. Okay, that's kind of cool. So mouse movement. Swapping images, that's all good stuff. So let's go back to how do I make it work. So adding JavaScript, page 575. So first of all, you could just add it right in here. That's the one option. This is kind of sort of similar to like the inline kind of thing. I mean, it's not exactly inline because inline CSS would actually be inside a tag. This is its own separate tag, but basically it's kind of sort of the same. So it could be embedded, which means instead of having my thing here, I could have a script here, put some scripting stuff there, and then just call it from down there. Okay, so it's kind of sort of the same thing. It could be external, just like CSS, except this is a JS file. So I can have a file, and you load it in, and it's just a script, and I could just have a source equals and point to this JS file, and presto changeo, it loads all the stuff in. So it's really not that bad. In the old days, what you had to do, because in the early days there was an awful lot of browsers that just kind of got a little confused by all this, and so what you would do is you would comment out the script like this using the HTML comment thing, and well, I didn't mean to go that far. And what would happen is it would look at that and go, well, okay, if you supported it, it worked. If you didn't support it, it didn't work. Basically, this is just not done anymore. There's really no need to do this type of escaping because, again, practically everyone has Java. Whether they got turned on, I said Java, didn't I? Forgive me, JavaScript. They may not have it turned on, but at least their browser knows how to deal with it. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.